Hello, this is Mr. Huff, and the first part of this project is to produce an assembly of these parts such that when you turn the crank, the follower follows along with the crank. Now, if you went through the tutorials and you understand assembly, I think you can do this independently without this video. However, if you're getting stuck or not sure where to proceed, then you should follow this video. So, okay, we have some purists in the room that are not sure that this kind of a crank would work because it has a circle on this end and this is just a square that goes through a hole. So we're going to resolve that. When you're in Onshape, if you click on two corners, it'll tell you the distance. So this is a 0.25-inch distance, and if you use a little Pythagorean theorem, you can find that about a 0.36-inch circle will encompass that. So what we're going to do is click on Sketch and choose this face, and then I'm going to hit N for normal to plane, and you see that we can see the origin. It's a good idea to start your sketches on the origin so that when you are trying to do things like this, you have an easy place to go. Okay, I'm going to use the center point circle, and we're going to click on the origin here, and we're going to expand that. I'm going to click, put 0.36, and enter, and that makes my little shape there. All right, so I'm going to use the right click to rotate a little bit so I can watch my extrusion. We're going to hit extrude, and we're going to choose all the parts of that circle. Because it's on top of another plane, it split it into three pieces, so I'm just going to click on those left to right. And then we're going to reverse the direction, and we can leave it at 1 inch. So if you kind of rotate it around, you can see where it's going to go. So now we have the axle handle fixed, so that now we have a circular piece at each end that will go through the hole. All right. Now, the next thing is to add an assembly. So we're going to choose Add at the bottom left, and we're going to insert an assembly. First thing let's do on this is we're going to right-click on this and choose Rename, and we're going to use uppercase letters. We're going to call it the Cam Test Box. Except we need to spell cam correctly. Sorry. All right. So the first thing we do when we have an assembly is we need to place the initial piece. So I'm going to choose Insert, and I'm going to choose the one that I have called Box. And we hit a check mark on that. We want this to be the part that everything is connected to, and this is something that designers, or especially intro to engineering students, will forget to do, and it causes a lot of heartache later. So the first thing you do with this is you right click on it and you choose the word fix, and what that does is it locks this box to the X, Y, and Z axis, and it's kind of your ground point. In Inventor, it's called grounding the part. It's the only one we do that to. You don't fix any other parts. What that does is it shows that it's connected right there, and that means that if we move stuff around, this is always going to be connected to the X, Y, and Z axis. The other things we can rotate freely, not this one. All right, enough about that. First thing we want to do is, after we get the box, we want to go to the axle handle that we just modified. So I'm going to click on axle handle and hit check. Okay, once we get these in here, you can see that we can drag them around. The problem is we want this axle handle to go between these holes. So I'm going to click on the axle handle, and it pops up with this little XYZ axis. And what you can do with this is take and rotate it. So we're going to rotate it back 90 degrees so that it's aligned like this. All right, so I want to position this where, okay, before I go on, it is real important to have a mouse because you need to use right click to rotate these parts easily, and you need to have your center wheel so you can zoom in and out and pan left and right and up and down. Okay, so where I want to end up is kind of like this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use Revolute constraints on this piece. So Revolute, if we go look up here, we can see this is the Revolute mate. So we're going to zoom in on this. We're going to click on Revolute. We're going to choose the end of the axle handle, and we're going to choose the end of the hole. Okay, and when I do that, it puts the axle handle in the hole, and that should be all we have to do. So I'm going to hit Shift and the number 7, and now if I click on the axle handle, I can't drag it left and right, but I can spin it around. Okay. Next thing we want to add is the guide tube. So I go to Insert, and I find the guide tube, and I hit check, and it hit it back here, so let's go grab it, and it's inside the box, so let's grab it and pull it out, because that's annoying. Alright, so what we're going to do is we need it lined up and down, not left and right. So I'm going to click on this with the left click, and we're going to rotate this way 90 degrees, and that's going to let us have this lined up with the top of our box. Okay, so the easiest way to connect this to the box is to use the fastened mate. So we're going to use that, and I want to connect it between the top of this hole. So let's zoom in, not the bottom but the top, and then let's rotate and zoom in on the bottom of this, and we can just hit the inside circle or the outside circle as long as it's the outside. Okay, I'm going to hit Shift F7 or Shift 7, and now we can see that that is on there. If I click on that little guide tube and try to move it, it will not move. So now I have an axle handle that turns, a guide tube that doesn't move. Next thing we need to do is insert the follower, and I modified this follower a little bit from the original because I was trying to get something to work. Anyway, so it's a little different looking than what you'll see in PLTW. So I'm going to put this out here, and I just need one. Notice that whenever you're in insert mode, you can add multiple parts at once. My counsel to you is only add one part at a time, and that way you don't get yourself confused. Alright, so here we go. We need to orient this so the little foot part is down, so we're going to rotate this 90 degrees. And I like to just let it go until it clicks. You can type that in as well. And we're going to move this around. And where we want it is we want it inside that guide tube passing through. So I'm going to put this over here so I can see the guide tube and that the follower. What we're going to use is, and then we're going to use, this is the one we want. We want slider. Sorry, I took bad notes. Oh, it's right here. I was reading the wrong notes. All right, so we're going to use the slider. Again, we're going to click on this piece and anywhere in the guide tube and hit a check mark there. And now if I grab this piece, it'll slide all the way through it, all the way through the box, up and down. Which is a behavior we will have to address, but right now I just want to park it where the follower is just below the guide tube. So if I do Shift 1, I can see from the front that that's where it's landing. Okay. Last part is inserting your hexagonal cam. So we're going to hit the hexagon, and we're going to put it out here somewhere. And we need to orient it properly for connection to the arm. So I'm going to click on it. We're going to rotate it with this arrow, 90 degrees. Too far, just right, almost there, bam. Again, you have to have a mouse to do this. All right, so where we want this to end up is we want this underneath the follower and connected to this arm so that it rotates. First thing I want to do is, this was originally drawn with a cylinder, so we should be able to do a cylindrical mate between the arm and that tube, so, or the, not tube, what is this? Cam. Okay, so we're going to choose the cylindrical mate. When you're modeling assemblies, sometimes you find better ways to do things. And I just completed a connection between this cam and this axle arm, and I didn't like how it behaved. So I'm trying a different one. We're going to use the slider mate, which will, no, we don't want to use the slider mate. We want to use Revolute. Yes, Revolute. If we do a Revolute mate, we have an offset here that we can use. So this is the one I want. I want to be able to turn it, and I want to have an offset from this end. So we are going to go to the centroid marker of this piece. And we're going to go to the centroid marker, that's not what I wanted, of this axle handle. Okay. The other thing I want to do, if we look at that from the front, it's not in the right place. So we're going to add an offset, and I have a note here that says it's probably using measurements I took from the box by clicking on it. We should be able to do an offset of 3.876. And let's see how that works. It went the wrong direction, so I need to do this. And that's not quite it. Let's try 4. That's the other option. All right. No, this one is 4.125. All right. The reason I'm doing this, let's see, 4.125. That should be right under the follower. You can see the follower. You can see the cam. The reason I use those numbers is it's a 4-inch displacement from the edge to the edge of the hole, and I had to go half of a quarter over. So it's all measurements that I took on the top. So now we should be able to turn this, and you see how it turns without turning the hexagon, but I can't move the hexagon. So the next thing we need to do is connect the hexagon to the axle handle. So I'm going to pull the axle handle forward, and I'm going to rotate this. Let's zoom in so I can show you what I'm doing. I'm trying to get this where I can see inside, because where I want it to be is I want the top of the handle parallel with this. So I need to do a planar mate. So I need to rotate this a little more. We're going to zoom way in here. And this is kind of tricky because you have to kind of navigate where the box is and where the top of the handle is. We are going to do a fasten or a planar mate. I'm going to choose planar. You know what's going to work better? Do this. This is a trick you need to know anyway. All right, what I'm going to do is zoom out. The box is in the way, right? So we're going to suppress the box. And what that does is it takes it away. Now I can move this around way more than I want. But I want the... Since I don't have the box, these are moving around freely. Let's see if we can get this to work now. So we're going to choose planar, and I'm going to zoom in. I want the top of this connected to this face here. So we're going to rotate this around, zoom way in, get that one, and see what that gets us. Does that connect it? Okay, that's what I want. Check. Now we're going to unsuppress the box, and that's going to put everything back where it's supposed to go. All right. So Shift 7. And now we have a handle that can turn. Okay, sorry, that was a little messy. It's important to watch the videos and then go back and do it. Now the next thing, and the thing that gave me a lot of trouble until I figured out that little arrow is really important. We want this to be connected to the cam, and right now if you look at it, you can make the cam and the follower just intersect each other. So we want to have these separated, and what we're going to use is the tangent constraint. We're going to click on this, the bottom part of the follower, which is curved, and one of the faces on the hex cam. And what it does is it selects all of the continuous face of the hex cam because it knows we want those two to follow each other. And notice how the foot didn't move down to the hex cam. So let's click on this arrow that is flip primary axis. And when you do that, it connects to the cam, and that's what we want to see. I'm going to hit check and Shift 7. And now you can turn the handle and the follower moves. All right. So getting the cams connected to the handle is a little bit tricky because you have to zoom in and out a lot. But when we're done, I should be able to grab anything in there, and I can't move anything. Okay. So the only thing that moves are the handle and the follower when you turn. That's how to do it.